You would think that after being sued for defamation, suffering historically low TV ratings, and having to fire and lay off hundreds of people, CNN would be doing everything it could to, be taken seriously again. Well, apparently they haven't learned their lesson. They ran an entire 2-minute segment talking about big balls. Yeah, you heard that correctly. They were trying to expose a Doge staffer who went by the username Big Balls Online, and instead of using his actual name, Edward Korestein, they just repeated Big Balls over and over again for the 2-minute segment. Here's how it started.
So this is a 19-year-old high school graduate who has used the unfortunate nickname Big Balls Online. So that would be one way that we could refer to him. He is now working at Musk's behest inside Doge. And we looked into his background. And so we found, several notable things, Aaron, one of which is that this individual has founded multiple companies, including one with another unfortunate name, Tesla.sexy LLC, which he established in 2021. He would have been around 16 years old. Now, this LLC controls dozens of web domains.
Now, I love how they just throw out the Tesla.sexy and give no context to that. Sexy is a word that is commonly associated with Tesla. Why? Because it spells out all the models in the Tesla lineup. You have the Model S, the Model 3, the Model X, and the Model Y. You put those all together, it spells sexy. Well, not exactly, but you get it. Even Musk himself has referred to the cars that way. So that's not unusual. It's not a sexual thing. It's not a perverted thing. Even here on YouTube, one of the largest YouTubers, Philip DeFranco, at least in the news space, goes by the username Sexy Phil. There's nothing wrong with that. But of course, they're trying to paint this picture of Edward Korestein as some sort of pervert just because he used the online nickname Big Balls and then has an LLC with the word sexy in it, which of course is a tie to Tesla. There is so much that the Democrats and the media could be focusing on, but right now, the hill they want to die on is whether or not Big Balls is an appropriate name. Just what a joke. And the fact that they even put that on the Chiron is even funnier. By the way, earlier today, Big Balls was trending on Twitter. It was the number 2 trending topic, and it had 69,000 posts in the United States. 69. You cannot make that up. Just sometimes things work out the way they're supposed to. Maybe the universe is trying to send us a message. I don't know. But of course, the segment continued, and so did the hilarity and joy.
So, Kara, you hear this, and you have known Elon Musk for years. So now you look at these young men who are now in data and in the private information about maybe hundreds of millions of American citizens as young as 19, the big balls here that Katie's talking about. Most of them are in their early 20s. There's an exception I'm going to get to in a minute. I'm curious, though, Kara, how well does even Musk know these young men, do you think?
I have no idea. I think there is no vetting whatsoever, as you can see, that's taking place. It took Katie and the really great team. Wired has done an astonishing job here. I could make a joke that's probably why he was hired for all this ridiculous nonsense and other nefarious things. But, there's an expression in technology that's it's a feature, not a bug.
Okay. When it comes to the age of these hires, is there any doubt in anyone's mind that, no offense, I know that some older people watch my videos, but generally speaking, just broad assumptions, is there any doubt that young people are probably better with technology and coding than older people? That's not to say that older people can't be coders or engineers or anything like that. Of course they can be. But just generally speaking, a kid today who has an interest in coding and computers is just going to have more resources and more opportunities than someone who got into coding later in life. It's not a diss on anyone older. It just is what it is. But over on CNN, they're trying to use that. They're using everything they can to try to attack Doge, to attack Elon Musk, because nothing has been working so far. So like I've been saying over the last few videos, they're just throwing everything they can at the wall to see what sticks. And this whole Big Balls fiasco, if they want to get distracted by this and go down that rabbit hole, go for it. It's not as if Big Balls was his user ID to log into the government databases, servers, and whatnot. It was his own private personal social media handle. Does that suddenly negate his experience and expertise? As if he doesn't know anything about computers or coding? It's not as if he's Anthony Weiner showing off his wiener. This is a 19-year-old kid who used something funny on his off time, on his personal free time. And yet CNN wants to run with this like it's a national breaking news story and everyone should be up in arms. Now, there is a story here as far as DOJ staffers is concerned. According to the Wall Street Journal, DOJ staffer resigns over racist posts. So who they're referring to now is Marco Alez. What's interesting about this case is that before Marco Alez began working for DOJ, he deactivated his X account, and it was a fake X account, which he used to post and retweet all these racist things. And for those of you not on X, whenever you deactivate your account, it goes bye-bye, disappears. You're like people can't access your account. It's a 404 page, as if it didn't exist. X saves the username for you just in case you decide to come back online, but if your account's deactivated, it's gone. So for me, that raises the question, how was the Wall Street Journal and all these media outlets able to find Marco Alez's deleted and deactivated social media account to find all of these racist posts? I'm just wondering, like, how did they find that? To me, there must have been an insider, whether at X or who knows, maybe the CIA, feeding them this information. All of that does not absolve him of his posts for me until he makes an apology. I'm assuming that that's the wavelength that he's on. And to be very clear, he was not fired. He resigned of his own accord, though obviously he was pressured to resigning. Well, after this, Elon Musk actually posted a poll, bring back DOJ staffer who made inappropriate statements via now deleted pseudonym, with over 385,000 votes. 78% of the people said yes, 22% of the people said no. I actually voted in this poll, and I'm one of the people, believe it or not, who voted no. Yes, I do believe in free speech, and I get that hate speech and even racism is protected under free speech. I'll explain my reasoning towards the end. But, you know, I'm not angry at the people voting. Yes, you're free to your own opinion. JD Vance even spoke out. Here's my view on the issue. I obviously disagree with some of Alez's posts, but I don't think stupid social media activity should ruin a kid's life. That I agree with 100%. We shouldn't reward journalists who try to destroy people ever. So I say bring him back. If he's a bad dude or a terrible member of the team, fire him for that. Again, I'll explain my reasoning later in the video because I want to get a few other news stories in, but that will be the question of the day. Do you think Marco Alez should be brought back, yes or no? And if you already have an opinion on that, feel free to leave it in the comments. Now, I think there are a lot of reasons why people are voting yes, but if I had to theorize as to the top two, I think number one, kids say dumb stuff, and people recognize that. This is the first generation that's grown up just knowing technology their whole life. It is a different dynamic for them than it is for us. Like, I'm a millennial. Smartphones, high-speed internet, personal computers, they weren't really widespread until I was in high school and college. But kids today, you know, they're born with it, and everything is at their fingertips immediately. How many people older than me, like Gen X and older, would have been canceled for the things they said as kids? I mean, when I was a kid, you could use the word gay all the time as a derogatory term. That's so gay. You could use the F word. You could use the R word. I mean, if you did that today online, you would be canceled and it would just haunt you everywhere. And so I think, you know, if the internet was around and if it was what it is today when we were kids, we wouldn't want that same judgment to follow us for the rest of our lives. And I think that that's the same sort of grace that people like JD Vance are giving Marco Alez. I think there's also another side to it. And it's, you know, there's this kid who, not on the job, but in his own personal free time, said some hateful stuff. But we have Democrats, sitting congresswomen, sitting senators who say racist stuff all the time, and yet they're in elected office. One example is Ayanna Pressley, who yesterday in the House chastised the governor of Iowa and complained that the state was too white.
Like Iowa. Governor Reynolds, let's learn more about the state. Do you know what percentage of Iowans are white and what percentage are black?
I don't know the exact percentages, no. We're by far a larger percentage of white population.
That's correct. Iowa is 90% white and only 4.5% black. So that is drastically different from the national population. So when Republicans suggest Iowa should be a national model, they're advocating for a government that doesn't reflect our country. So let's talk about what this model.
Talk about just taking something completely out of context and spinning words to try to score cheap political points. Completely desperate. Now, for the record, the black population in the United States is about 48.3 million people, and that composes about 14.4% of the population. So Ayanna Pressley is upset about 4.4% because the black population in Iowa is about 10%, national average 14.4%. She's upset about that as if the Iowan government is killing black people, which I don't think is happening. The only program that's even close to that would be Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood, which aborts more black babies than any other demographic in the nation. I mean, like, you cannot make this stuff up. What does Ayanna Pressley recommend that Iowa does to get the balance just right? Does she want them to kill white people? Does she want them to force black people to get pregnant? Like, where was she going with that? What was she thinking? She wasn't. Look, it is a lot harder to think, come up with original thoughts, ideas, solutions, than it is to play victim. And that's why the Democrats are playing victim right now, because they cannot cope with Donald Trump's popularity, with the rapid pace at which he is implementing his agenda. So going back to CNN, we started with CNN and we're going to come full circle. A former Obama staffer was playing the victim. Woe is me, racism. Despite the fact that she's a lawyer, despite the fact that she worked in the White House, despite the fact that she worked for the first black president ever, a historic win, she's a victim in all of this. Take a look.
I do not have the same opportunity as you. I know I don't.
And you know
and
that
I know
too.
what, Scott.
And you know that.
Let me just tell you about me.
I'm gonna let you finish, but I want to answer this.
I'm not talking about how you feel. I'm talking about how I feel. Me, a black woman in this country.
But not in this city.
And I will run. And if you want
Look,
me
I'm a New Yorker, not in this city. You cannot say that. You can't say that in this city. I'm
not talking about New York. I'm talking about actually
let her finish.
right here. I got a law degree, a master's, and 2 bachelors. Probably more education than all y'all added up together at this table, right? And I have always been the least paid person on payroll at every institution I have worked in. And it's not
because... Even in the White House?
Even in the White House.
Well, whose fault is that? I don't think you worked for George W. or Trump.
Well, guess wasn't what happened when I was there. DEI.
Scott.
Look, she said, I want to talk about my feelings. I want to talk about how I feel. Facts don't care about your feelings. I think it's Ben Shapiro who says that all the time. But if you're a lawyer, why don't you come at us with the facts, with actual arguments, instead of saying, I'm going to tell you about how I feel? Because a feeling isn't an argument. Also, you were the least paid person in Obama's White House. Obama, who was also black. Obama, who had a diverse cabinet. Are you accusing Barack Obama of being a racist? Is that the argument she's trying to make? Maybe if you were the least paid person in Obama's White House, the problem probably has to be with you and not him, especially if that happens to be the case everywhere you go. Just saying. Also, I would just like to point out that Kamala Harris's campaign, Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton's, were all exposed for paying female staffers, especially female staffers of color, less than their white male counterparts. I mean, this is a common trend in the Democrat Party. I'm not defending it, but it also doesn't necessarily mean that it's institutional racism. There's a lot of reasons why women sometimes get paid less than men. And just because that happens on paper does not automatically mean discrimination, does not automatically mean sexism. Yes, sometimes it does, but if a woman takes a year or 2 years off for maternity leave or just wants to be home with a baby, and then she comes back into the workforce, well, a male is going to have more experience than she does. I mean, my favorite word when it comes to discussing these issues is multifactorial. There are so many factors that go into this. It is so complex. Negotiating room. How much you can always negotiate your salary, but what if there is a difference? And it's unpopular to say this today, but there are physical, but also because of that, psychological, emotional differences between men and women. Men, just on a baseline level, are more aggressive, so they are more likely to negotiate their salaries, right? And a woman might not be. Now, let's translate that. A black woman who, because of culture, because of society, might feel like she can't fight, might feel like she can't be bold, and so she might be less likely to negotiate her salary. I'm not saying the system's perfect. I'm not saying it's right. But when you take a look at all these factors, that does not mean there's racism and everyone's out to get you and it's systemic oppression. Like, I just don't buy that. So there you have it. One final story before we wrap up today's video. On the channel, I've talked a lot previously about Lindy Li. She was a former finance chair for the DNC. Well, she appeared with Sean Ryan, and I'm going to post a link down in the comments for those of you who want to watch this whole podcast. But she revealed, we've long suspected this, but there was no evidence. All we had were suspicions. But she has now confirmed that the superstars, Beyonce, Cardi B, were paid to endorse Kamala Harris, which to me, if you're paid to do that, it's not an actual endorsement. That's a transaction.
Tell me about Beyonce.
Despite her repeated denials, Beyonce was paid.
Who was she paid by?
The Harris campaign. She was paid tens of thousands of dollars to not sing. Well, no, she refused to sing. She was paid tens of thousands of dollars to give a speech that no one wanted to hear. And Kamala Harris thought all of these people came out to Texas to hear her speak. Yeah, right. They came to hear Beyonce sing. And you know what? This is the second time they failed to deliver Beyonce. The first time was at the DNC. They promised that Beyonce would perform. Beyonce did not perform. So that was letdown number one. Letdown number two, they went to Texas to prop up this candidate who could never beat Ted Cruz, Colin Allred. And they told NBC News that Beyonce would perform. Beyonce came out and gave this speech, this boring ass speech, and just left without performing. And then Kamala Harris got booed. She got drowned in boos because people didn't really care what she had to say. They were there to hear Queen Bee. So that was number one. Beyonce was paid to show up. Cardi B was paid. Okay, Cardi B, who famously said she wasn't paid, her production company was paid to show up. Katy Perry was paid. Christina Aguilera was paid. These people were all paid. And Oprah wasn't paid $1 million. She was paid $2 million. Okay, let's be very clear.
$2 million.
$2 million to Harpo Productions. Who owns Harpo Productions? Flip Harpo backwards. It spells out Oprah.
Yeah, I covered all of these stories last year while doing campaign coverage, so none of this is new for those of you who have been following the channel, but now we finally have confirmation, and not just from a random blogger, not just from an anonymous source, but again, Lindy Li, the former finance chair for the DNC, so she has a lot of knowledge, a lot of connections, a lot of sources, and then obviously just has a lot of credibility. By the way, for those of you who haven't been following, she has officially left the Democrat Party. Like I said, I'm leaving a link to that down below. I'm also leaving a link to Puppetgate. We should always, in my opinion, support independent creators. He just released a brand new video, a parody around USAID. So if you are pulling your hair out and just need to relax, let go, have a good laugh, hey, a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. I'm also going to leave that down in the comments below. Be sure to tell him I said hi. I think we should support other creators, independent, free-thinking creators here on YouTube. Obviously, the independent media lane is growing, and I believe it will continue to grow, and I think we all have to support each other because it's us versus the rest of big media, which has millions and billions of dollars behind them. But as always, all of that is just my analysis. That is what's going on in the world of politics from my point of view, and I would love to hear from you. So again, the question of the day, Marco Les, do you think Doge should reach back out and hire him, yes or no? And then why or why not? For me personally, a few things. Number one, I believe in the First Amendment. I believe in free speech. I'm a free speech absolutist. And I believe that extends, yes, even to hate speech and racism. He had a right to say what he said. He had a right to be racist. Do I agree with it? Obviously not. I think it's wrong. Just, I'm just going to say it at a moral, ethical level. For me, it's complicated, right? Multifactorial. Does that mean he's not capable of doing his job? No, of course not. He's great at doing his job. Does that mean he should have been fired? No, but he wasn't fired. He resigned because, from what I understand, he resigned because of the Wall Street Journal piece that came out, and then he just felt pressured to do that. For me, so he has said some harsh things, specifically about Indians, and I know that a lot of Indians are engineers and coders, and they work for Elon Musk. Elon Musk does use the visa program, so a lot of Indian immigrants or whatnot do work with Musk. And so I just think having someone that you know is openly a racist now working on the team can create a lot of friction, remove a lot of that efficiency, and the efficiency is what we want at Doge. Regarding free speech, you know, I would rather have someone be an open racist. I would rather know that the person standing across from me is a racist than have them smile and then stab me in the back. You know what I mean? So it's like, if you're gonna, to me, just say it out loud. Show your true colors out loud rather than stabbing me in the back. But that doesn't mean that I should want to have to work with you. And I get what JD Vance is saying about second chances. But from what I've seen, there hasn't been an apology. I think that's the core crux of the issue for me. If he apologizes, if he says, hey, I was out of line, I was young, I don't believe that anymore, I think that would be a different story. Do I think that even if he doesn't apologize, does that mean he shouldn't ever get another job? No, of course not. And like I said, I think the reason a lot of conservatives or a lot of people voted yes is because they do see the double standards. They see racist, just openly racist talk coming from the mouths of Democrat representatives all the time. And it's just like, well, if they can say it and they're in power, like at some point, someone has got to take the high ground here. And I know some people say, Daniel, you're too Puritan, or Daniel, you're too, like, it's not about naivety or anything like that. It's just, no, like, if you can find someone else who isn't racist, who does the job just as well, I would rather go with that person. Like I said, just my opinion. You don't have to agree. If you haven't already, please be sure to give me a thumbs up. I know it's a simple thing to ask for, but it really does help me reach more viewers like you in the algorithm. Be sure to smash that subscribe button and to check out one of these videos.